Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Melanie McLean, and I'm part of the Alumni Engagement team at York University. Welcome to you all, and thank you for being here for this session, Making the Most of LinkedIn Learning, which is exclusive to you as part of the class of 2021. You may have used LinkedIn Learning program as a student, and now that you've graduated and you head into your career life, we want to introduce you to the alumni program. I want to share with you a few items before I introduce you to our LinkedIn Learning expert. If at any time during the session you need help with this experience, feel free to click on the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen and enter your question, and our team is on hand to help you. As this event is virtual and we're not all gathered in the same space, I recognize that the following land acknowledgement might not be for the territory that you're currently on. If this is the case, please take the responsibility to acknowledge the traditional territory you're on and its current treaty holders. As a member of the York University community, I recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located and that precede the establishment of York University. York acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Tekaronto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. As part of the alumni engagement team, I have the great pleasure of working on behalf of the alumni community to help make programs like this accessible to you. Along with many other special rate programs and discount programs that we hope you'll learn about soon. One example is Manulife. Manulife is our generous sponsor today, helping us give you free access to LinkedIn Learning. Manulife is more than our sponsor. Manulife is also offering alumni special rates on life, health, and travel insurance every day. I do encourage you to learn more about your alumni community and the partners that we work with on your behalf. You can always visit our website at alumniandfriends.yorku.ca. And now let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce our dedicated customer success manager, Jacqueline Beal. Jacqueline is looking forward to sharing her tips and tricks on how to get more out of LinkedIn Learning. But before we get started, we'd like to know a little bit about you. We'd like to take a moment for you to answer a quick poll question. It should pop up on your screen. We want to know, what is your level of familiarity with LinkedIn Learning at this moment? Everybody a chance to answer that. Okay, it looks like people are generally familiar. So we have some work to do. With some people, we want you to be extremely familiar. So hopefully you get that out of this session. So without any further delay, Jacqueline, are you there? Hi.
I am. Thank you so much, Melanie. And to be honest, I'm glad that the majority were not extremely familiar. That might have been a little bit intimidating. So this is a good session. And the one person who is, I'm very excited because hopefully you'll have tips and tricks to share as well. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Oh, that's coming. Excellent. So as Melanie mentioned, I'm your dedicated customer success manager at LinkedIn. I live and breathe LinkedIn Learning. This is what I do. I help colleges and universities to prepare the next generation of leaders in terms of the professional skills that we can help you develop as you enter the workforce. So, and when you're in the workforce, to further develop it too, I should say. I like to think of myself as the poster child for skills-based hiring because I have pivoted a lot in my career. So I know firsthand that positioning your skills front and center can work to get you where you want to be in your career. And I think it's so wonderful and exciting that your alma mater has given you access to LinkedIn Learning to continue to build your professional skill set and to give you that edge in the workforce. So knowing that jobs are changing rapidly and the skills required for those jobs are changing as well, I want to show you how you can use LinkedIn Learning Yes, to develop those skills, absolutely. And also to position yourself as somebody who learns continuously, who keeps up to date with relevant skills, and who has that kind of growth mindset that we know that employers really, really want right now. This is kind of the loose agenda that I have: why LinkedIn Learning, how to access and search skills, and how to build your professional brand. The reason I say loose, yes, we'll touch on all of these, is because I think there's a nice advantage that we have to being a small group, in that we can also make it more conversational, and we can have a little bit of discussion around some questions that you might have. Feel free to ask them. I'll typically answer at the end of each of these sections. I'll go through the questions, but please feel free to make comments in the chat or otherwise to engage in the process. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, what do you think of when you think of LinkedIn? What are the first kind of words that come to mind? There's nothing, no wrong answer. It's just your impressions or what you know of LinkedIn. And you can come off mute and answer it, or you can put it in the chat as well. I know there's a reason you're here. I know there's a reason they've invited me. I know Melanie sought me out for a reason. What is it? We can get there. All right. Oh, here we go. Perfect. I'm seeing things come through. Oh, the chat is disabled. Oh, hold on. We're okay now though, right? I use LinkedIn as a job board and as a static profile for work opportunities mostly. That's great. I can see some, sorry panelists, I can see some chat messages, but not all. Is that normal? There we go. Professional networking, yes. Building professional connections, job posting, fantastic. There's one term that a lot of people think of, but that I haven't seen yet here. You're all hitting it right on, but anything else that you can think of? Job searching, absolutely. Loads of motivation, perfect. Recruiting research volunteers, that's excellent. Does anybody think of more of a social component? For learners and network, yeah. Okay, I'll stop teasing. What I was thinking of is social media. So LinkedIn is a type of social media. That is one of the functions of LinkedIn. And whereas for other social networks, you have different kind of more personalized lenses, or more personal lens to the things that you're interested in. In this case, they've used donuts. So let's hope nobody is very hungry right now. This kind of shows you the lens through which different social media networks would position, for example, your interest in donuts. But all of you, I think, knew that on LinkedIn, it's really got more of a professional kind of networking feel to it. And that's the lens through which we're using LinkedIn. So with that in mind, here's a snapshot of what we call the economic graph. So it's an overview of what we know from LinkedIn and of all the data we can gather. We have over 774 million members, which is up from about 650 million last summer, to give you a sense of the growth. We've got 36,000 plus skills, which can seem really intimidating if, like me, you don't feel like you have 36,000 plus skills. However, it speaks to the diversity of skill set and to how particular we can get as well. We also have 280 B knowledge, which that actually means data points. And the reason that that's important is because LinkedIn is very proud of its rich source of first-party data. It's high-quality data, and it speaks to the strength of the platform and of its algorithms. So the way that LinkedIn works, it actually aggregates information on skills, interests, and even job titles to recommend content for you, whether it's a job posting, for example, perhaps a group you might be interested in, or for example, on LinkedIn Learning. So I'm going to switch screens and show you how you can look for these skills on LinkedIn Learning. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to ask you again in the chat, how familiar are you with accessing LinkedIn Learning? Does everyone know how you can get to your LinkedIn Learning homepage? If you all say yes, that's fantastic. And if you say no, this is the time to let me know so that I can show you. No, perfect. You click on LinkedIn Learning Center. That is correct. So there are 3 ways that you can access LinkedIn Learning. The first is you can type in linkedinlearning.com. That will take you here. The second is you can go to your personal page on LinkedIn. And from here, there's this button that says work. You would click here, and then on this learning icon, which I think is the learning center that Minu is referencing. And the third way is you can download a mobile app. And the reason that I like to point this out is it's extremely accessible. So if you have LinkedIn on your phone, you can actually download content and read it or watch it or listen to it offline. For example, anybody who's commuting, or if you're walking the dog or something like that, and you want to get some content that way. It's also a way to use LinkedIn Learning as kind of a podcast, which we know people like. So again, there are different ways that people take in information. We're feeling different levels of kind of overwhelm with all the information that we're getting. And we're noticing that a lot of people really like to just listen to content. So if you're going out for, let's say, a 10-minute walk, you can listen to LinkedIn Learning content on your walk. And that's one way to access it without it always being on a screen if you're finding that a little bit overwhelming. So again, the 3 ways that you can access it are linkedinlearning.com, from your LinkedIn Learning profile page, work, and then the Learning Center, or from your mobile app. Once you get here, this is where people tend to feel a little bit more overwhelmed in general because there's so much content. Has anybody had that feeling of there's a lot of content and this is great, but I don't know where to start? Yes. Thank you for your honesty. Yes. Yep. Lol. Yes. Okay. Me too. And I work here, so I get it. There are 3 ways that I like to think of how you can access content on LinkedIn Learning. One is when you arrive at your homepage, this is kind of everything that you could possibly think of that could be relevant to you. It's almost like window shopping. So if you're thinking of it as you're walking down the street, maybe you're on Queen Street West, let's say, and there's some interesting stores and you're not looking for anything in particular necessarily, you just know that you're kind of looking around. This is a great opportunity to sort of window shop. So as I spoke to the power of our algorithm, LinkedIn will actually recommend content based on what you've engaged with in the past and on your current job title and what other people with similar job titles are watching. So for example, I am a huge data analytics nerd. That is very true. So I'm not at all surprised this comes up in the top. Customer success management fundamentals, that's my job. So this isn't for no reason. This is actually coming from information that's aggregated that we have on you and people similar to you. Trending now can be interesting. I know there's a lot, so I'm just going to point out the ones that I like in particular. Learning within 30 minutes. I think a lot of people appreciate kind of quick, digestible content. So this is a great place to look and see if anything resonates with you. I would also say popular on LinkedIn Learning. This tends to be popular for a reason, so it's a good place to look as well. But really kind of browse around. Don't worry too much if this feels like a lot. It is a lot, and it's really there just for variety and diversity for you. You can also see if you're at an organization, it will suggest content up here that they want everybody to learn. So for example, diversity, equity, and inclusion is very big at LinkedIn. So right now we have a course that's recommended from LinkedIn directly to us about understanding and supporting Asian employees. You might find that you have something similar if your profile is attached to an organization, for example. So this is the broadest way to look at content. Next, if you're thinking, okay, I'm out window shopping, we'll stick with this example, and I know that I want a chair, but I don't know exactly which chair. I just know I need a chair for my living room, which may be a current real life situation for me. In this case, you don't have anything really super particular in mind, but you don't want to go through the whole buckets of different categories here that we have that are on offer. This is where you would hit browse right up there. And you'll see that they're bucketed. The skills are bucketed in different categories. So we've got business. So that's a lot of professional skills. You can see here, it defaults to this. Creative. So a lot of AutoCAD, for example, graphic design, video production. And then technology. So this could be, for example, learning about coding, data science, cloud computing. That's how it's sort of generally bucketed. And then again, if you have an organization that's creating content, it will have their logo right here. But from here, what you can do is, often I like to start with business. You might think about career development. Okay, I may be thinking about the next role that I want. And I don't know much more other than that, but I'm not really sure how to go about kind of figuring out how to get to the next role. You could start with career development here. Under here, it has 3 suggested topics. Let's say personal branding is something you want to work on. You click in there. All right, so this will give you by default the best match based on your search terms, or on your filter terms, I guess I should say. So what sounds like personal branding? Learning personal branding. No surprise there. Creating your personal brand, becoming a thought leader. If you're thinking, okay, this is great, but I don't know, it's not coming up in the order in which I thought, play around with this sort by. So you can go to sort by newest, for example. That can be really interesting. For anything tech related, I would recommend starting with newest. So if you're looking, for example, for Excel, what is newest is probably the one that you want. You don't want the view count, for example, which might take you to 2016 because a lot of people have seen it over the last 5 years. You're going to want to try newest, but definitely play around. If at first you're thinking this isn't exactly hitting it on the head, I find often this is the reason why. So that's kind of how you can start to filter down and explore more what you're interested in. As you're looking at what's coming up, either you'll find something like impromptu speaking. You might go, yes, this is it. It's my public speaking skills. You can come up here and type in public speaking. Or you might think, no, it wasn't really personal branding. It was something else that I needed. It was an elevator pitch. So then you can come up here and write elevator pitch. And then this can kind of help you drill down to exactly what skill set you're looking for. And of course, if you know right off the bat that you want to look for an elevator pitch, that's when this search bar comes really handy, because it will take you to exactly the kind of content that you want. And again, you can always play around with this on the right-hand side. Also, I did want to point out, you can decide if you want to watch a course, a video, if you want audio only. You can decide if you only have 10 minutes or less, or if you really want to dive in deep for 1 to 2 hours, you can also play with the time. So I would highly recommend you come in here and just explore. Just, maybe with nothing in mind, or maybe just an example in mind, come in and just kind of get a feel for the tool so that you can use it best. I do want to stop here and see if you have any questions so far. Is this making sense, or is there something confusing or something that you want me to cover? Making perfect sense. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anyone who's saying, okay, I want to do an example. I have an example of something that I'd like to look for. Do you add trainings based on requests? I mean, for example, if as PhD student, all students like you need to learn about stats or research methods, would you add it? Do you mean me as LinkedIn? Would LinkedIn add it? Okay. Yeah, so LinkedIn will take information from all of our partners. And if we see that there's a trend towards content that's requested, absolutely, we will start developing more content around that. It does tend to be professional skills based as opposed to academic. That's kind of how we partner with academic institutions. But yes, if we see that there's a common need, we will address that. Yeah. You're very welcome. Any other questions on this? I feel like I might have gone a little bit fast, so I do want to give you the time to think about this. I'll also, as you're thinking, I'll point out there's a button here that says My Learning. If you click in this, you can see what you have going on in progress. This can be really handy, so don't feel like if you're starting a course that's an hour long, you have to get through the whole hour of it. You can actually always come back and dive right in, and you don't need to remember where you left off. You also have saved options, so if you want to look for it later, you have your learning history. If you want to look at what you've done, if you want to, for example, show your supervisor what you've done, this can be really handy. So I'll stop here for a second and ask you, where would you start to look for the skills that you need? Let's say you're in the workforce now and you're at your new job and you're kind of trying to think ahead and plan out your career a little bit. Where would you go to think about what skills you could add and get as wild and creative as you want? Not on this necessarily. Yeah, for sure. So let's say you're at your first job and you're wanting to build yourself a little bit, build your skill set. Where could you go to learn about what skills you need for your job or for your next job? What would be helpful for you? Where would you find what skills might help you get the edge in the workforce? Talking to people in those roles, yeah. LinkedIn profiles of successful professionals in your field, absolutely. Yep. From the job ad, excellent, yes. Job listing, exactly. You can go on LinkedIn and look at the job listing and it will have the top skills right there. And that's one way that you can start to look at what jobs are relevant for you. Exactly. Look at your own skills and see what you can polish on. Absolutely. And I would add to that too. I mean, often we have fairly set kind of goals and metrics within our roles, right? So you can actually talk to your supervisor, your boss, your manager, however you call them, and say, okay, this is what I'm doing well at. This is maybe where I need some help, or this is a goal that I have to reach. And I would say use that. That's a really great way to show progress to your employer too, right? Is to say, okay, I wanted to get a little bit more comfortable with public speaking and I took some courses on it. That's pretty impressive. I'm also going to show you, and I'll put the link in the chat. This is a site that LinkedIn created. There we go. To kind of allow you to find different kinds of skills based on jobs that you input, based on job titles. So it is quite a lengthy site. There's a lot to kind of play around with, and I suggest you do. Do not get intimidated, please, by how far you need to scroll before you input some roles. This is just really kind of playing around, showing you different things you can do. So for example, you could put in Toronto if we're in Toronto. And if you're looking for a job, let's say software engineer, this website will show you the kinds of skills that you might want to build for this job. So this is saying, okay, these are the kinds of skills that we know from our platform and from our algorithm would be helpful for you if you're looking to become a software engineer in Toronto. And then within this, you can kind of play around too. You can look at related jobs, for example. These are kind of similar jobs to what you put in. You can say, okay, maybe not software engineer, but software quality assurance engineer. What does that give me? Is it really different? Are you seeing similar patterns to the skills that are being recommended? So this is a really cool website. It's definitely one I recommend, frankly, to everyone, just because it's really using the intelligence of the algorithm, plus what you specifically are looking for to try to generate some skills and some ideas. Again, I would still stick with kind of checking with your boss, your manager, your employer first, especially if you want to grow within that organization, because that's going to give you the most impact. But if you're thinking of maybe pivoting, or if you're thinking of a different kind of role, whether it's inside or outside the organization, this can be a really handy place to start. Also, if you're finding that the skills that are coming up are just not interesting, that's telling you something too, right? Maybe this is something that's close to what you want, but maybe you want to do a little bit more exploring to see what else is out there. Any questions on this website? I know it's very cumbersome and you're probably going to want to just dive in and start exploring, but are there any questions that you have off the top of your head before I move on? How to search, yeah. So you're going to want to scroll down when you type in, or when you copy and paste in the address, you're going to want to scroll down quite a bit until you find this section that says explore job transitions. From there, you can select your city. I did Toronto as an example, and you just enter a job here. So start with a job title that you think could be what you're wanting to look into. Social media manager, that's another popular one. And from there, you can start to look at the different skills that are being offered, the skills to build, for example, that are emerging. You're very welcome. Yeah, so just play around with that. You can't do anything wrong. It's like a search bar, so it's a great resource to have. Any other questions on this? All right, perfect. I just wanted to show you this slide as well. It's comparing the skills that companies needed most in 2018 to the skills that companies need most in 2020. And the point of this slide is to show how quickly things are changing. So these arrows indicate whether on the right-hand side here are indicating whether they've moved up the list, down the list, or whether they're equal. You can see there's only one that's actually just the same position as it was 2 years ago, which is UX design. So again, it's just speaking to developing your skills. It's great for your own skill set. It's great for your career, but also showing yourself as somebody who is able to learn, who has curiosity, who has that growth mindset. That's valuable in and of itself. Employers want to see that. They want to know that their employees are not just willing to learn, but keen to learn and keen to adapt and want to have the latest, most relevant skills. Then they're not having to sort of drag people through training, right? They see that you have that appetite. So in and of itself, it's really, really useful to have that ability to show that you're learning continuously. And one of the ways, just in case I'm making assumptions here that we are doing this, one of the ways that you can do this is when you finish the course, it will give you the option to put it on your LinkedIn profile. I highly, highly recommend you do this. There's another option to broadcast it to your network, and it kind of generates a post that says that, you know, Anna just completed this course. You can do that if you want to, that's up to you, but certainly putting it on your profile will really help employers to see that you're somebody who likes to learn, who takes the initiative to learn, who's got the latest skills, for example. Any questions on this? Excellent. Now, in terms of building your professional presence, oh, sorry, go ahead. Is it possible to set which courses are visible publicly in your LinkedIn profile? For instance, if you want to look at some general interest courses that might not be related to the industry you are pursuing professionally. Great question, Jeffrey, I love it. Yeah, you can. So every time you're done a course, you can choose whether or not you put it to your profile. If there's something like, I know apparently we have a course on how to play the ukulele. You might not. I mean, you could put it on your profile. You might not, depending on, you know, how you want to kind of show up and whether that's something that you think would be distracting or whether it would enhance your profile. So it depends on the course. You can always take it down too. So it is quite kind of fluid that way. But I recommend in general putting it on your profile, because even if it is the ukulele, unless you find it really distracting, it's kind of cool to show that you have these different interests and that, again, you're out there building skills and a diverse range of skills too. That's a great question. So I get asked a lot about kind of building, you're very welcome, building your presence and building community on LinkedIn. I wanted to show you, especially as you are alumni, a couple of ways that you can look to grow your network on the platform. Discover existing connections, it's probably the easiest. So this is when you go into your My Network icon at the top left, and already LinkedIn will suggest people you may know. This might be based on the program that you attended, for example, or your current organization and who works there. It typically is second degree connections. So people who are connected to your connections, they will show up first up here. This is a nice, easy way to discover people who might be in your network, but you didn't think to connect with officially on LinkedIn. Why does that matter? If you move on from a company, it can be kind of awkward a few years later to go back and reconnect and say, hey, do you remember me? It's a little bit more easy and approachable to do it while you're working together. You can also search for new connections. So if you have an idea of somebody that you want to get in touch with, for example, a manager of customer success at LinkedIn, you can go and search the location, this would be Toronto, the company, and then you can see who comes up and what their job titles are. Play around with this. It's got a lot of different capabilities. And that's one way that, for example, you could get in touch with a hiring manager that you might be interested in working with. Absolutely use the Alumni Tool. So on the York University page, there is an alumni tab here. And what you can do is there's a search bar right there, where you can see where do they live? Canada, Toronto, where do they work? And you can start to filter down and find alumni. I like that because it's a warm introduction. So you can say, hey, we both went to York University. I'd love to learn more about whatever interest they have or whatever industry they're in. And it's a nice way to get that warm connection. You can also search for York University groups. So you have a York University alumni group, for example, with quite a lot of members on it. I already have 10 connections in this group. You're saying, how do you get to this page without using the link? Great question. So you would go into your personal LinkedIn page, and you could just type in York University alumni, and you would get right here. York University, there are lots of variations on that, for example, in England. So you might need to look through them to see which ones are applicable to you versus other York universities, but they will all generate. And so that's how you would find it. You would just search York University alumni, and then you can filter for groups, or you can filter for schools if you're looking for your school as well. Great question. And there are several different groups. So absolutely, I recommend you going in there and taking a look. What you can do in these groups is you can ask questions of the York University alumni community, knowing that these are people who have all kind of signed up to help each other and who have this professional mindset going into it. So for example, if you're really stuck about, I don't know how to break into this sort of industry, you can ask, is anybody in this industry, would you be willing to have a coffee chat with me, for example? And that's one way to kind of get your foot in the door and to leverage your alumni group. And then people tend to ask me, how do you add value and engage with your network? And this can be kind of a cumbersome feeling sort of activity, right? We've got this network that's growing and we're feeling a lot of pressure to add value, to create posts, to generate content. And I would say there are a few things that you can do. Invest your time in your connections and your requests, be thoughtful about it. Like and share different content that will push the content to the top. Join groups, like we just mentioned. These are different activities you can do that's not just generating content. You can give recommendations to others. And when you're doing these LinkedIn learning skills, you can actually hit the top right-hand corner. There's a share button, and you can share the course out to your network. And what that does is it makes it free for anyone to watch for about 2 or 3 days. They can go click on it and watch it if they don't have a license. Very limited time, but it is a high value sort of activity, because if you're suggesting a particular piece of content, if you have a great course and you're saying this is really helpful, please go watch this, then they've got your recommendation and they have the ability to watch it. So it's really, really high quality way to engage with your network as well. So that is LinkedIn Learning and LinkedIn in a nutshell. I've got lots of extra slides and things. If you have additional questions about your profiles or anything like that, I did want to stop and allow you to ask questions though. And I did want to apologize too. I saw a couple of typos on here that did not obviously save. So my apologies for that. Any questions on anything on your profile pages? Going back to LinkedIn Learning. You mentioned sharing course completion on your profile. Can you show us how that looks? And would you recommend adding certificates or outcomes from other small online courses as well? Yes, absolutely. So if you have the ability to add any other recommendations, or sorry, any other certifications on your profile, absolutely go ahead and do it. I will show you right now how you can do it on LinkedIn. All right. So let's say we're in a course. Oh, you know what? Actually, I wouldn't be able to show you without finishing one myself. Just realized that. So what you would do is when you're done this course, there would be a message that pops up and asks you if you'd like to share it on your profile. That would be the way you do it. I hadn't thought about this before, that I can't actually kind of demo doing it without going through the course itself. It doesn't allow for that. So it will pop up though every time. We'll show up here and we'll say, would you like to add it to your profile? And also, would you like to share with your network? Again, sharing with your network is going to be that post that says to all of LinkedIn, hey, I just finished this course. If you want to do that and kind of share with your network that you're keeping up to date, you absolutely can. Otherwise, you can uncheck that or choose not to have that and just put the profile, the certificate right on the profile. There's nothing that you have to do other than check OK and then confirm that that's what you want. There's nothing extra that you have to do. You don't have to go on your profile and do anything there. So that's pretty easy for you. And then I think there was another question related to that. From other places, that's a good question. And it would be through that platform that it would give you an option to put it on LinkedIn. So you would check with the different kind of third party, for example, that you want to put on LinkedIn, and there should be a way to do that. Can you get notifications about new courses and how? Great question. So there, probably the easiest thing is to go to your homepage and to look at trending now or new releases, because these are going to be tailored more to the content that you are interested in. So we have about 50 courses that are released every single week, which is fantastic. But if we were to notify you every time there was a course, it would obviously become quite overwhelming. I get those notifications, so I can tell you it's overwhelming. But probably going to your homepage and looking at new releases, these are going to be new releases that are more applicable to you. So that's a great question. Can you get access to the recording after? I'm not entirely sure. I'll have to defer to Melanie on that. However, I can provide slides. If you have a way to host them, I can provide them. You're very welcome, Andrew. Is there anything? The recording will be available. Fantastic. Thank you, Christina. Is there anything else that you wanted me to go over, or anything that you think, you know, I'd love to see an example of finding a course again or something like that? This is the best time to ask is right now. Okay, while you're thinking of that, if you're thinking of that. Okay, perfect. I will go through that again. Absolutely. One course that I can recommend right off the top is Rock Your LinkedIn Profile. This is going to go through everything that you need to do to set up a great profile. I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It's got everything that I would tell you right there. So that's rocking your profile. LinkedIn tips, there's one just called that, LinkedIn quick tips. These are good if you're stuck on anything. If you're thinking, okay, now how do I, use a certain functionality on the platform? These kind of quick tips are great. So anything you can think of to search, absolutely go in there, see if it's there. You'll be surprised at what you find. So to go through again, how we can find the content on your homepage, I like to think of this as kind of window shopping. So top picks based on, again, my role and different skills that I've been learning. Trending now. Live office hours are sort of live events if you're more interested in that. Learn within 30 minutes can be nice because it's quick. New releases for the person who asked about new releases. So just kind of go in here to take a look, to become more familiar or to get a general sense of what's available and what LinkedIn is recommending based off of your profile, what you've been watching, and jobs similar to yours. When you want to get a little bit more specific, but you don't have exactly the idea of what you want, you're just feeling like you need to develop in a particular area, that's when you go to the browse button, and then you can look at the different buckets of skills. Often I find people come here to look for things like career development, leadership and management. That's another popular one. There, you can come in and see all the different skills that LinkedIn has bucketed under that sort of competency. So you can look at leadership skills, for example. And from here, you can sort by best match, view count, or newest. Again, newest for sure for tech skills. That tends to be what you want. For this kind of skill, I would generally say best match. And then you can also play around up here with, for example, time to complete. Like, that looks pretty interesting. Lots and lots of little nuggets there. And then when you know a particular skill, this is one that's very popular, you would type that in directly into the search bar. So Excel pivot tables for beginners. If you don't know pivot tables, I highly recommend getting to know them. How can you access a recording? Perfect. Christina's already answered it. So I did want to be mindful of time. I've got lots of time to answer questions. But Melanie, I know you wanted to say something as well. So I would kind of say if anyone else has any questions that you have that we haven't covered, speak now.
Wow, we've covered a lot. So I do want to clarify for everybody who's interested in the recording, it will be available to you probably as early as this afternoon or tomorrow, but I'll actually be posting it to the library within the LinkedIn Learning platform, so you can access it right through your platform, through your account. So, and on that note, we are trying to develop more York content. We do lots of lecture series and things like that that are geared towards you as a young alumni audience, like financial literacy, and I think there's one coming up on home buying. So as these courses or as these sessions make themselves available in recording format, I will be posting them to the LinkedIn Learning platform, so you'll have access to hopefully all sorts of York content as the months go on. Yeah, so I did want to just reiterate what Jacqueline mentioned about the York LinkedIn Learning group. Please join the alumni group in LinkedIn. Sorry, if you haven't already. We have close to 14,000 members, so we'd like to see that grow even more with your input. And that way, when you do searches, there'll be more alumni in there to network with. So I totally encourage you to do that as well. So if anybody has any questions after today, definitely you can email me. I think you all have my email address, or there's also the alumni email, alumni@yorku.ca. Yeah, feel free to email me, but anything to do with LinkedIn, LinkedIn Learning, or any of the other programs that are offered to you, and I'll do my best to answer them or push you in the right direction for somebody who can. So I guess that concludes our session. But before we say goodbye, we do really want your feedback on today. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a quick second to answer another poll question. We want to know, will the information presented today be more useful to you, make LinkedIn Learning more useful to you. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care, everybody.